Hello, Major Harney. This is our last discussion for C.S. Lewis's Outside of the Silent Planet. For this discussion, I will be talking about the Hrossas. Here's a picture that I drew of the Hrossas. Well, here's all the Hanas. We have the Sorn, obviously Ransom in the middle, Philadrigi, which looks like a bug or an insect as written in the book, and then here's the Sorn or the Hrossa right here, specifically Hanoi. Hanoi, he as a Hrossa, he represents a 7-foot kind of otter-like creature with very, very black, dark fur. To me, he kind of reminds me of Chewbacca from Star Wars. And he meets Ransom by coincidence. He's getting out of the water, and Ransom was just finishing running away from what he thought was a Zorn. And they meet each other. And actually, Ransom takes the steps to meet the Hrossa once he sees him. He kind of appears from the tall grass, and then Hrossa sees him, and it kind of gives you shivers from their first encounter, because it says that Hanoi, the Hrossa that he meets, the huge bullet head swung round and lustrous amber eyes fixed him. Minute after minute, in utter silence, the representatives of two so far divided species stared each other into the other's face. So, they're both very curious people, the human and Hrossa, and the Ransom and Hanoi. And Hrossa, he quickly breaks all the stereotypes that Ransom thought of them. Ransom put Hrossa on the same page as the Sorn, which meant that he was scared, intimidated, and thought they were like wild monster bees that were out to kill him. And what Hanoi does when he first meets Ransom is he walks away, and it looks like he's just walking away from the whole situation. But that's not like Hanoi, because Hanoi is a very curious person, and so is Ransom. And Ransom yells, "Wait!" And what Hanoi was really doing that Ransom didn't know was he was actually getting food for Ransom. He knew Ransom was famished and that he was hungry and tired. He didn't know what to, and the human probably didn't know what to eat on the planet or what was safe to eat. So that's definitely a characteristic of the Hrossa. It was compassion. And he also quickly offered to teach Ransom the language of the Hrossa, Hanoi was, which goes to show you that he's definitely even more compassion in that sense, in that he wanted to learn from Ransom, and Ransom also wanted to learn from Hrossa. So I feel like Hanoi kind of represents what's best of mankind, of human nature, of just sharing this kind of empathy toward each other, or to the humans, and kind of positive characteristics of Ransom. But our description of Hrossa is only what Ransom sees, and this is Ransom. He has a hard time trusting the Hrossa at first, because he's never met a creature like this before, and he definitely has conflicting views of the Hrossa in the book. There's this one paragraph that describes his confidence in the creature, and it starts like this. They arose when the rationality of the Hrossa tempted, the confidence does. The Hrossa tempted you to think of it as a man. Then it became abominable. A man 7 feet high with a snaky body, covered face and all with thick black animal hair and whiskered like a cat. But starting from the other end, you had an animal with everything an animal ought to have: glossy coat, liquid eye, sweet breath, and whitest teeth. And added to all of this, as though paradise had never been lost and earliest dreams were true, the charm of speech and reason. To me, this was very, very hard to fathom, because it's like my dog speaking to me. Like, it's so weird. Like, I love my dog, and I swear sometimes you can understand. You almost speak to it just by by its body language, and you know when your dog is happy or upset. And it's crazy to think that like you'd have this experience where you'd have such an intelligent animal that looks like so destructive in nature, yet it has that intelligence that keeps it passive, and it empathizes, where it doesn't use blunt force, or it's just not focused on Darwin's theory of survival. It's very intelligent, and it just makes me think of the Native Americans when the Western Europeans came over to the New World. They saw the Indians quickly as savages, but they just had a different way of doing things, and they were just They were very communal, just like the Hrossa. They had a very sophisticated cultural background and folklore that they shared and passed down orally, like the Hrossa. The Hrossa loved poetry, and a lot of Native Americans, I want to say they were also monogamous, just like the Hrossa. There might have been some tribes that weren't monogamous, but for the most part, there was definitely, I feel like they had some deep-rooted values of respecting their partners, and they had a shared relationships in the jobs they did in their community, with like the women doing the cooking and then the raising the kids. But I feel like there was definitely some similarities between the Hrossas and Native Americans. And Ransom, like the Western European, he saw the Hrossas, at least the young Hrossas, as ignorant and naive, and probably imagining the Eldili at times, the light in the air. But really, they weren't imagining it. It was there. And Ransom just kept thinking in the book that I wouldn't give him the benefit of the doubt, similar to how like Western Europeans didn't give the benefit of the doubt to Native Americans at times, continuing to refer to them as savages, which is very prejudiced. And this kind of reminds me of Rudyard Kipling, an author who also kind of had this shared idea of Europe or Western Europe being more ideal of a human civility. Like the Western Europe was more civil than Africa. Africa should adopt the ways of civil Western Europe, but he obviously did not empathize with the tribes in Africa and the clans he referred to, because they had a certain way of doing it, and that was just as developed for them, and it was just as unique, and that was for them what represented a fulfilled life, sort of like the Hrossa. There was really no best way or ideal way of living your life. It's very based on just the culture and the people who you surround yourself with, and sure, there's a lot of values and morals that are shared, but there's no one way of there's no one best way of living one's life, as long as it's fulfilled in some manner. You don't have to have technology or certain things in life or highly developed, sophisticated governments if the person who's living is able to, I feel like, find love and have a family and just have a very enjoyable, fulfilling life. So really that's just my whole view on the Hrossas. Even though they may appear more simpler than man, and me referring them as like Native American and Ransom as Europeans, they're still all very in touch with their values, and if any, they kind of make me feel deplorable, since that more in touch with poetry.